I'm doing a PhD. I'm also a research fellow. In that position, I'm developing this tool and testing this tool. And first, I want to give a brief introduction to the whole concept, so that we're all on the same page. And natural capital can be defined as the world's stock of natural assets, including geology, soil, air, water, and all living things. It is from this natural capital that humans derive a wide range of services, often called ecosystem services, which you will have heard about, and which make human life possible. So it's important that natural capital is a stock, and from that stock of natural capital, if managed sustainably, then there will be a sustainable flow of ecosystem services, everything we gather from nature, everything we benefit from nature in terms of health benefits, etc., etc., and that benefits us as humans. The problem is, if that natural capital base and stock declines, we can't expect the same flow of ecosystem services coming from that stock. So it will decline as well, and in the end affect our human well-being in deteriorating it. So we have to reinvest and take care of our natural capital base and resources so that we can secure a sustainable flow of ecosystem services. The Natural Capital Committee in 2015 came up with the so-called 25-year Natural Capital Plan. And we see that in the past, the value of natural capital has steadily declined, and we are at a point where if we don't intervene properly in a business as usual scenario, it will further decline, and that will inevitably negatively affect our human well-being. And now we are at a state and a point of time where it's not just enough to just protect what we have, we also have to enhance our natural capital resource to get towards the initial value of that stock again. So the State of Natural Capital report also states that given that over 80% of England's population now live in urban areas, the quantity and quality of green infrastructure is of critical importance. It is not just an issue of well-being and economic benefits, but also of equity and distribution. So we know, for example, that more deprived communities also often have less access to high-quality green space, and that further disadvantages them, for example, in terms of health effects. We also know that investment in green infrastructure is often the first to be sacrificed during periods of financial pressure, but that's a false economy. It's very short-term thinking. If you don't invest now, we will have the problems later, and we will put, for example, additional pressures on the NHS if we don't provide the healthy green spaces now, the healthy green infrastructure, and allow our population to be active in the green and also benefiting from the positive effects on mental health, for example. And green infrastructure needs to be fully incorporated into urban planning systems to help avoid short-termism. And building green infrastructure into long-term development plans will not only ensure its benefits from the outset, but will also avoid costly retrofitting in the future. So it's really important to invest now. We can save a lot of costs in the future. Natural Environment white paper published by HM government also acknowledges that the government expects the planning system to deliver the homes, business, infrastructure and thriving local places that the country needs, while protecting and enhancing the natural and local historic environment. And planning has a key role in securing a sustainable future. However, the current system is failing to achieve the kind of integrated and informed decision-making that is needed to support sustainable land use. This has been picked up by the National Planning Policy Framework, published shortly afterwards, at least acknowledging that the planning system should contribute to enhance the natural and local environment by recognizing the wider benefits of ecosystem services. So it's not only about protection, it's about enhancement. The question is only, but how? How do we do that? How do we implement that? If I'm a planner, a designer, a developer, how do I implement this high-level policy? And that's really where we jumped in, and we, based on this call, we developed a natural capital planning tool to make it possible to fairly easily implement this demand for planning. So the purpose of the natural capital planning tool is really to better assess and manage the long-term impact of proposed developments and plans on the delivery of ecosystem services. And the tool is designed to give planners and developers a simple and straightforward Excel tool to hand, which does not necessarily require specific expertise, because often this expertise is not available in-house. So we kind of outsourced this expertise and implemented directly into the tool by engaging many experts to do the assessment for them, for the tool user. And aim is really to move away from a thick box exercise to an integrated and informed decision making with the main aim to ensure that new developments and plans have an overall net positive impact on the provision of ecosystem services. And we believe that this will be a requirement when implementing the 25-year natural capital plan, which has now been adopted by DEFRA, and there will be a policy document being published soon. Coincidentally, our tool also assesses the impact on ecosystem services over a time scale of 25 years post-development. At the time when we started to develop it, we didn't know about that plan. It was not, there was no mentioning of it, but coincidentally it fits quite well the time scale of the 25-year natural capital plan as well. And the tool can be applied at different scales of the planning system, from a master plan, a site selection stage, down to a plot scale. And it can assess the impact on 10 different ecosystem services. Harvested products, which is basically everything we physically gather from nature, biodiversity, aesthetics, recreation, water, flood and air quality regulation, local climate regulation, that is referring to the urban heat island effect and to mitigate the heating up of city centers. Global climate regulation, it's referring to the sequestration and storage of carbon, and soil contamination as well, because it's often an issue in a planning context. And how does the tool work? So we used a multi-criteria decision analysis framework, so it's not based on a monetary valuation. The reason for that is that the evidence to express the value of nature and ecosystem services in monetary terms reveals many gaps. And for this kind of comparative assessment, we want to avoid these gaps, so we base it on a scoring system from, let's say, -10 to 10 points and scores, not monetary valuation. And we identified a set of relevant and readily available, that's very important, indicators, and they have been identified by a stakeholder group we established at the beginning of the project. And for each assessed ecosystem service, an expert task group was established with the main aim to translate the indicators into impact scores. So at the moment, we don't really have the evidence, for example, mapped about the value of ecosystem services. So we have translate all the evidence into a metric that is useful for this context. This is a framework. Don't worry, you don't have to memorize that. Here we see the ecosystem services assessed, and here's the input level indicators, as we call them. So that is basically what the tool user enters into the tool. And the guidance is provided in the tool, so all the data is easily and freely accessible. And here just an example for biodiversity. So the biodiversity score depends on the land use change. So each land use has a specific score, and then the difference from one land use to another will define the biodiversity score. And it also depends on the importance within the ecological network. So biodiversity values commonly increase if they're well connected to other high quality habitats. And these two indicators make then up the biodiversity score. And one feature of the tool that should be recognized is that habitat maturity has been explicitly recognized. So a mature woodland patch, for example, receives a higher biodiversity score than a newly created one. This is just to prompt developers and plan makers to really protect the really nice bits of a development site instead of paving everything and then rebuilding everything. And this is how it works. So first, the tool user enters some indicators. Here we have the different land use changes and some other indicators as well. It's all explained in the tool. Then the tool will automatically calculate an impact score for each ecosystem service, so indicating the direction of change, in this fictive example positive, and also the magnitude of the impact. But because the tool can't incorporate each and every possible circumstance, it also allows the tool user to adjust scores. So here we have the average scores, which are defined by the expert groups. But if I don't agree with these scores, then I have the opportunity to adjust them. The tool will then highlight adjustments to be transparent about any changes made, and also prompt the tool user to give a justification for any changes, so that we can't just play around with the tool as long as possible until we have the intended outcomes. So it's basically to prevent that. And then the tool will summarize all the different impacts. So we have the different ecosystem services that are assessed, and for each service a score. The unadjusted score also stated for reference. And then the tool comes up with a final development impact score. Obviously, it's a political decision which kind of scores I want to feature. For example, as a decision maker in the planning department, I may decide that we don't allow a negative score on biodiversity, but let's just assume that the overall aim is to have a general overall positive development impact score. Then from that perspective, assuming that all other requirements of a developmental plan are also met, you can proceed with the development. And if you assume that the outcome is negative, then the tool will also give you some examples and point to some references how to improve specific scores. So for example, if you have a negative score on biodiversity, to stay with the example, then it will refer, for example, to the Lawton review to improve the kind of design and the kind of connectivity that is necessary to have a high biodiversity score and generate high biodiversity values. Then you can redesign your plan or development design and rerun the tool basically, and hopefully in the end we have a positive outcome. So this tool, we've been developing this for the last 3 or so years. And recently, well, not that recently anymore actually, but in April 2016 we received some additional funding from NERC. And the aim is really, because the tool is available in a test state, now the aim is really to implement it in a wider planning context and to further test and refine it. So the project aim of this specific 2-year project period is to instigate a step change in the appreciation and incorporation of green-blue infrastructure value and benefits within English planning policy using the analytic lens of natural capital and ecosystem services. So this is our project team. You see we have several case study partners, and we test the tool with each case study partner, always hoping to make an impact on the different plans they have. And we review the planning system, we test and refine the tool together with the case study partners. Here you can see we want to cover as much as possible of the spectrum, from rural to urban green-blue infrastructure settings, and also along different stages of the planning or development stage. So it is basically for us to figure out where the tool works well and where it may not work so well, and which kind of applications are there for the tool in the future. And it's also, we want to fully engage with the case study partners, really make an impact on the ground. So it's not a purely academic exercise. And we also want to engage with the wider planning and developer community through our links with the Business Council for Sustainable Development and other partners who will help to facilitate and really mainstream this kind of thinking in this tool. And we think that the tool can be a link between the Natural Environment White Paper, driven by DEFRA, and the National Planning Policy Framework to deliver the 25-year Natural Capital Plan. It's obviously only one tool of many and only one measure of many measures, but we hope that it will really help to deliver the 25-year Natural Capital Plan. Thank you very much. Probably